Hey YouTube, Gunther here. I wanted to do a short little introduction on how to align the flex plate or your flywheel on the automatic transmission VR6s. And remember, we're working on our Volkswagen CC. So there's a lot of cars have a similar type setup where the, call it a flex plate, call it a flywheel, is mounted on the crankshaft. Now, on the VR6 we're working on, I want to show you because in the future, a lot of people are going to have trouble and they're going to spend hours on hours trying to get this thing lined up. And I want to show you a real easy way to do it, okay? This is going to be a lifelong lesson that you're going to need to keep around for anybody that's ever going to work on the VR6, okay? So, I've got it lined up here just so you can see, and let me grab the flashlight and a pen so I can point a couple of things out. All right. When we reassembled this engine, we had it on top dead center. So right now the crank, remember the little tooth for all of your gears and your chains, your timing chains and all that? Well, there's a little cut on the main bearing cap, and there's a tooth on the drive gear on the crankshaft, and it's set pretty much at 9 o'clock, okay? Now, I want you to see something on this flywheel. Do you see this little line right here? Let me get my pen so I can point it out. So you see this little line? It's kind of a little cut into the flywheel itself. And then do you see right here on the timing chain cover? Right here, I've kind of colored it black with my pen. Okay, there's a little nub there that kind of sits out, and it's a machine. And do you see how this line is lined up with that? The only way that that is going to allow you to put your bolts through your flywheel and the two shims is if your shims, there's a little cutout recess, and I'll take this apart and show you in just a minute. But there's the shim has a dot or a circle, okay? And that lines up in between the two bolts at about the 1 o'clock position. And then about 1 o'clock is where your line to the flywheel is. Okay, your cut, your notch on the flywheel. And then about 1 o'clock is where your little notch is on the timing chain cover. Okay, so you see how that's lined up? You've got your notch on the flywheel color. You got your nut, or I guess that's an indentation on your flywheel cover, kind of like a little hacksaw cut. And then straight down here in between this bolt at 1 o'clock, about 2 and 1 o'clock. And then there's your dot for your shim. Now let me take this shim plate apart and I'm going to show you with the shims without the flywheel. I just want to show you that's how you line your flywheel up, okay? Your notch on your flywheel aligns with that little mark on the timing cover. That's the only way, because these, your bolt holes and your threaded bolt for your threaded bolts on your flywheel or on your flex plate can only go on there one way, okay? There's a reason for that. It's all balanced. So let me put down the flashlight. I'm going to take these off and I'll show you the shims mounted on the back of the crankshaft and how it lines up with this line right here, okay? Stand by just a minute. Bear with me. If you can't see, I apologize. Let me get the, okay. The other thing is you want to make sure that you push this all the way forward, okay? So, apologize about the dirty hands, the grubby hands here. So let me go ahead and take the shims off, and we'll set the flywheel or the flex plate down here. Let me get the other shim. It, of course, falls just like a penny on concrete. Alrighty. Okay. You see this little dot? Okay. It's very important that this has to go either away from you, like this, or towards the engine block like this, okay? There's only one way that's going to work. Likewise, on the other shim, you have a hole, okay? That is only going to fit on there one way. That's machined and cut in there only one way. Now, I've went ahead and I scribed a little mark here. So there's our flex timing mark that would line up on our flex plate. You follow that, and I took my magic marker and I put a little mark right here. So see how that lines up with the cutout? Now watch whenever I lay this with the kind of little dent with that mark right there, which lines up here, okay? Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and take the 2 bolts that I had. Okay, I'm gonna feed one in here just like this. I'm gonna take the other one, and I'm gonna feed it in just like this. Apologize for, you gotta get about 3 things lined up here. You gotta get the 2 shims, your flex plate, and the bolts with the holes, okay? All right, so if I zoom back, and you'll see, get the flashlight, you'll see the dot and the circle is mounted with where the screws are able to go in the holes, is lined up with the line that's right here, okay? The little machined timing mark on the timing cover itself. So remember, that lines up with your flex plate, has a cut, lines up with this, and then those 2 shims, there's only one way they can go on there, okay? So make sure you flip them back and forth. Now, the other part of that is you've got to get your flex plate or your flywheel on there so it and the shims all line up. So what do? Well, first off, we know that this has to be, the indentation and the hole has to be lined up here. And we know that this line, let's find it, this little cut right here, has to line up with there. Now this particular flywheel or flex plate cannot go this way, okay? If I try to do that, there's a lot of interference. I can't even put that on because it's hitting all kinds of things. So the concave portion goes towards you or away or towards the transmission, and then that flex plate or that flywheel will go on there just like that. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take off our shims and our 2 bolts here, okay? Let me set this down just so it's out of the way. I'm gonna take off our shims. Remember, it's just a simple thing of getting everything lined up. Now, remember, the way we had this was that the circle was facing down away from us, and the little dot or the indentation, as you see, that little nub right there was facing towards it. So we know that has to go like that. And we also know that our flex plate or our flywheel has to go this way. So we're gonna go ahead and line this up like this. We're gonna put our shim on the back, and we're gonna put our shim on the front, just like that. We're gonna line up our little dot with our, it's actually about right where that is. So we're gonna line that up. We're gonna take our back one, make sure we hold our holes aligned, and flip it over. Where is the cut? Let's find it. It's right here, pretty much right in line with that. So our hole is there. So now we know everything is lined up like that. We're gonna flip it over. We're gonna take our 2, make sure you make sure that these actually screw into holes. It's no fun trying to get those through both the flex plate and the 2 shims when you got some messed up threads, okay? So next up, we're gonna get another bolt. I like to just use 2. I'm gonna get that going through there. It fell just like that. In the end, we will get our flex plate or our flywheel, find our notch, and we know that needs to go right up at about the 1 o'clock, roughly. We see our notch, we see our grooves. So let's get our notch lined up right about there. We can bring this over and look at that. We can screw our first bolt in, and we'll screw our second bolt in, just like that. And I'm only gonna do this a couple of threads, and then I'm gonna get the flashlight so you can see. Make sure that the shim, do you see it back there? Right there, you can see it's lined up, and all of the holes are lined up. They're threading in nicely. That's lined up with our timing mark right there. We'll go ahead and we'll push this forward just like that. And then we'll go ahead and zip these bolts the rest of the way. So, as you can see, everything's all lined up. All the bolts are gonna go in there real nice. Threads are cleaned. Now, make sure, after you put those 2 bolts in, go ahead and do your blue Loctite on your new bolts. These are one-time use, so you have to get new bolts. So blue Loctite, go ahead and zip them down, and then we're ready. When you get enough bolts in there, take your last 2 out, put your Loctite on it, put them in there, and go ahead and torque it down. Now, there's a couple of different ways to hold this while you're torquing it. Yes, you can theoretically stick you a screwdriver through here, jam it in one of the holes and hold it, and then torque it down that way. Are you gonna bend or bust your flex plate? Probably, and remember, this is balanced and it's a machine surface, and eventually all of these holes right here are what your torque converter bolts in. So you're gonna have kind of a wobbly torque converter that probably will adjust the seals in there, so you don't wanna do that. The other way, the proper way, is to get on the front of your damper. You have a couple of holes machined in it like this, and you can put a bar and thread some extra, maybe grade 8 bolts in there, and a cheater pipe, and hold it, or have a person hold it for you, or kind of bend it on the ground, and then come back here and use your torque wrench to go ahead. And the problem with doing it that way without having that zip down is, when you tighten these bolts, you're loosening the bolts on your on your damper on the front over here. That right there, okay? So you have to hold the outside portions. Let me get over there and I'll show you. You can't hold these bolts in here. You actually have to use the outside, and there is a tool for that, okay? The other thing that's really important is your notch. This works the same way. Your damper will only go on there one way, okay? Looks like they did some machine work on this engine before, or timed it or something, so they've got a 12 o'clock scribe is this white paint, but if you go back down here, you can barely see right about there. Do you see that little, it's lined up perfectly. There's a little cut on the back lip of the damper, and there's a little line on the cover. That is top dead center, okay? That means number 1 cylinder and number 6 cylinder are on their compression stroke, top dead center, waiting for the fire from the spark plug, fuel mixture ignites, and it's ready to go down, okay? That's all lined up, which means all of our timing is correct as well, because if it wasn't correct, we wouldn't be able to put our flywheel flex plate on, and it wouldn't line up with that timing mark right there, with here and here. Now it's a little bit off. I'm kind of sitting at an angle, and I've cranked these down so it's turned just a little bit, but you can see it's off maybe about, I don't know, a centimeter, okay? No big deal. It's still on top dead center, and the front is lined up, and there you go. So that's how you time and make sure. The other way you can do is you can get like something non-metal, I'm showing you with this, but I'm not going to use it. Non-metallic, and you can poke it down into there. A lot of people use like a dowel rod, and you can poke it down in there, and if your piston is at top dead center, it'll be right at the top. As soon as you pass those spark plug threads, you can shine your flashlight down in there and you can see, okay? And that's the way to do that. Alrighty, so we are gonna jump in. I know I had a little bit long-winded video before. And I'm sorry I didn't stop along the way and show you guys, you know, some of the other tips and techniques, but you know, it's pretty self-explanatory if you follow the manuals and if you follow your technical manual and if you watch, you know, read some of the forums, you watch other YouTubes. You know, Humble Mechanic is a good one. I think he just did one 2011 or 2010 VR6. But remember, the newer, even, you know, 2011 is when they did, I think, the facelifts on these cars, or 2012. So this has an additional cam phaser adjustment. The procedure for adjusting like your high pressure fuel pump and your vacuum pump is a little bit different. The timing chain itself and the gears for the oil pump is different. And remember, this is a VR6, so everything you're going to find out there is 9 times out of 10 going to be for the 2.0 turbocharged engine. These VR6s are getting, well, they brought them back for the Touaregs and I think the Atlas. So they're going to be around a little bit longer, but man, parts are really hard to find. I'm telling you, they're a premium. So anyway, yeah, look, she's coming together, almost done with the engine. Just a couple of things. I've got to torque the exhaust manifolds and then get the kind of heat shield thing ready to go. Actually, I'll hold off on that because that we've got to bolt up our catalytic converters to it. Alrighty, and we still got to get in the transmission. But next up for today is probably just going to be cleaning a couple of things here and here, and then I'm going to take a break and enjoy my pizza and some football. Alrighty, so yeah, she's coming together. I'm glad. If I can help in any way, by all means, shoot me a chat, and I will link to a couple of technical documents that are going to come in pretty handy in the future if people start working on these cars. You know, these Volkswagen Atlases with the 3.6 and the VR6s, especially the higher horsepower versions such as this one. The only thing I will say is, Volkswagen, why did you make an aluminum oil pan? I mean, just make that thing out of tin or, you know, sheet metal so that if it gets dented, it doesn't just crack or shatter like this cast aluminum. You know, that's almost as bad as the plastic ones you guys, Volkswagen, put on your cars. And I think Skoda, you know, some of those older, and probably some of the newer ones have plastic oil pans. Come on, man. This ain't a Kia. We're spending our good money. You know, y'all are, I mean, Porsche, Audi, come on. You're all one, come on. You're all Auto Group, get it together. Yeah, maybe weight savings, maybe some, I don't know, design or machine or somehow to cast them or something is a little bit more cost effective. But in the long run, for those of us that want to keep around the cars and we don't want to work on them all the time, we don't want to have our oil pan shatter from hitting a speed bump or something like this poor lady that owned this car before. Anyway, yeah, coming together. Table 1 is gone and table 2 will be gone later on. And thank you so much. So there's your flywheel and your flex plate information for those of you working on the VR6 Volkswagen CCs with the 09M automatic 6-speed front-wheel drive transmissions. Take care, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon.